Carl Martel, thank you so much for being with us on Hemp Barons today. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. Quite honored.
Please. It's such a wonderful honor to have you here. You are one of these, not just a brilliant mind and personality, but just a face that when I see you internationally, as we travel along, and I think probably you and I, that's only been a North America situation. That just brings me so much joy. And I light up around folks who I know that the plant has absolutely picked on and chosen to do its bidding. You are a hemp master of epic proportions. Just your awareness of the plant, and all of the different aspects of it. And I'm excited to just get right into this interview because I'm going to start out right away with all the things that you can do. The most amazing thing that I've seen so far in person in our interactions is Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance annual conference in Calgary a couple of years ago. It wasn't even the most recent one. We got to commune with each other at the most recent one in November of 2019. God, was that really the most recent one? But it was. But in November of 2018, you had what looked like your basic hempcrete brick, looked like some hurd, that inner woody core of the beautiful hemp stalk, some lime, some water, and I'm oversimplifying it, but you're going to educate me and us here with a wire sticking out of it. It was just literally like a hempcrete brick, a wire sticking out of it, and people were charging their tablets and their phones with what to me looked like a hempcrete brick. Here you are taking what is such a fascinating aspect of the plant, its energy storage capabilities, and battery sort of capabilities, and showing it to us in person, proving it. We're watching these devices be powered up and charged by that invention of yours. Will you please explain to us a bit of what that was?
Well, thank you very much for that.
And why it worked.
And why it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's really great. I mean, I started playing, I guess, with these sort of materials, 12 years ago or so, and building materials first and everything else. And geez, how did I even start? I can't remember. I was mixing. Actually, how I came about it was I took some lime, which is one of the main ingredients in hempcrete, as people will know. And then I combined that with a carbon, basically a carbonized material. So, because I was trying to think to myself, okay, can I improve upon the hempcrete idea, or can I make it, flow a little bit better, or other things? And so I made one day, and then I set it aside. And for some reason, I came back to it, and I took my voltmeter and touched it. I said, "Oh, well, this is kind of interesting. I got a voltage on here." It was reading 1.2, I think, or something like that, 1.02, and which isn't a whole lot. And at the time, too, it didn't really have that much in the way of milliamps or anything like that. But it got me to thinking, and that's where I started rolling with the idea. I said, "Oh, wow, could I store energy in hempcrete?" And so basically, from that, I started experimenting more and more and understanding more about batteries and these sort of things, and basically came to the understanding, that when you carbonize hemp fiber, whether it be the fiber itself or the hurd or other parts of the plant, the shells, the leaf, they could actually give you what is necessary in part of a battery, and that's the batteries. I'm going to try and make this as simple as possible. So if I take a regular AA battery, the metal casing that's around the outside is basically zinc. Okay, and that's going to be your negative. And then right in the middle, there's actually a carbon rod, but it's actually made from graphite. So we mine that from the ground. And then you have a paste that surrounds basically this carbon rod and touches basically the metal. And then you get that reaction. And then that's your regular AA or AAA battery or D-cell battery. They're all made basically the same way. And yeah, started working with that, and I came to that understanding. I said, okay, so there's carbon that we can get from the plant. Now, back in 2012, David Mitlin, so he actually did some experiments out in Calgary. He is now somewhere down in the States. I imagine, I think it was He's either in Potsdam or maybe out in California. I can't remember. He's continuing to do that some of that work as well. I think he's doing these little CR 2045 batteries, or the ones that go the little cell batteries, Um, and so he did some experiments on the fiber itself, so the bast fiber. Okay, so that long fiber, and he, found some this kind of a graphene type like material, and created small supercapacitors with them, and came up with was able to measure capacitance and came up to about 140, and then in 2016. I think it was a paper I read by, and Waysun was another one. He took basically the herd, and he carbonized that, basically following the same principles as David Mittler did, using a process called HTC, which is hydrothermal carbonization. So basically, you take your plant matter. So I'm going to make this very simple, right? So you're taking your plant matter, it goes into basically water, right? And then this in a stainless steel container, and it's closed, and this is what they call an autoclave. So it doesn't matter. We just call it a stainless steel container. They close it up and then put it in the heat, and you cook it at 200 degrees Celsius for so many hours, and you have to add in a little bit of some acid into that water, so kind of catalyst actions happen and stuff like this, and makes the pores bigger and stuff like that. So it works on the material, and then eventually turns it into carbon. It's kind of a graphitized carbon, and that material can then be used to create your supercapacitor, the carbon that's necessary in a supercapacitor. And you can be creating, these dual carbon supercapacitors, or you can have a carbon in another kind of material, copper or zinc or brass, any number of things that you can experiment with that you can actually do to have some kind of these potentials that are kind of going on. And so, that then led me as well. I was doing some work, and I was actually playing with the rice husks, not the rice husk, I should say, the husk of hemp shell. So people
The
can
hull.
kind of envision, the hull. So that's the outside shell of the hemp hearts that we eat, and that's usually a waste stream. It's a byproduct of that process. So I took that and I started carbonizing that material. Did the same thing too with the leaves and the other parts of the plant to kind of experiment there as well, and see that. And this too all led to me really looking into, like, is it just hemp or can it be other things? And so I started looking into other plant materials like bagasse, for example. Right, so bagasse is the waste product from sugarcane. So it's like sugarcane fiber after the juice has been pressed out of it. You get the sugar juice, and you have this stuff called bagasse. So it's just sugarcane waste. And you take that, and doing research and everything else, and some of my own experiments, and discovered, wow, this stuff is even twice as good as the hemp. You're getting like 300 farads a gram in the measurements. It was like, wow, that's pretty cool, and so on and so forth. So looking at more. Like, I'm really focused on hemp. Okay, I work in the hemp industry. I have been for the last 12 years. I'm very focused there. But some of the work that I'm doing with other companies that I have, and other companies, ABRI, for example, which is Advanced Botanical and Biomass Research Institute, kind of expanding a little bit, to kind of encompass more than just hemp, because hemp in reality is still really small when you consider the global aspect of things. I mean, to put it in perspective, Canada, we grew whatever 140,000 acres. It sounds like a lot. It's one of the largest in the world, behind China, and it's more than Europe and that sort of thing. So we're one of the biggest in the world in producing this stuff. And 95% of all cannabis grown in Canada is actually for food. So people kind of.
Canada is the world leader in bulk hemp food ingredients, and of course we know, and we talk all the time on the show about infrastructure, of course, and we're up to our saturated hempen eyeballs here in the United States on botanical extraction infrastructure. Oh, we've got botanical extraction infrastructure up the wazoo. Having said that, and as you know, in Canada, it's the capital expenditures for the processing infrastructure for the longest, strongest stock in the world is a larger capex, right, than to process the most nutrient dense grain or seed in the world. So indeed, we're nowhere near acreage to be able to feed all of the industries that we know that we can feed. We will get there with infrastructure, right? But
In time, one day.
yes, one day we will get there. And I didn't mean to interrupt you. Just wanted to get the listeners knowing just sort of that same reality, that same conundrum, or that same challenge slash simply the status of where we're at with the reemergence of the industries. Is this putting one foot in front of the other and making sure we're not asking farmers to grow a crop for which we don't have infrastructure, and while begging the entrepreneurs to invest in infrastructure and waiting 5 years for their ROI so the crop can come up. But anyway,
Right.
continue.
Yeah, so I mean, the industry is growing, and it's growing exponentially. I mean, things are changing very rapidly. I mean, just look in the last 10 years, or even just the last 2 years. I mean, Canada is now allowing, the recreational use of cannabis, and that's a big change from where it was, 20 years ago. And things are getting better all the time in this industry, and not just Canada. I mean, you look at the United States and you look worldwide. How many jurisdictions are actually changing their stance in regards to this? It's just changed at the UN. They've unscheduled cannabis as a narcotic, so on and so forth. I mean, there's a lot of change happening, and these are all catalysts to help, you know, propel this plant that, when we think, 150, 200 years ago, cannabis was the largest agriculturally traded crop in the world. I mean, that was it, more than corn, more than anything else. I mean, the British Empire couldn't have existed without hemp
We
or
couldn't.
cannabis. No,
The United States couldn't have
exactly,
existed.
exactly.
It's just tremendous. And when you say, when we think about it, 100 feet, I think about it all the darn time. It's all I think about, and it's the same thing with you, right?
Yeah,
And we often discuss on the show, the not necessarily just we don't necessarily delve into all various conspiracy theories, but obviously we went through a better living through chemistry, part of our human evolution here on the planet. It was unavoidable, um, and we've learned some valuable lessons. And so, Hemp, you can come right on back.
yeah.
I wanted to ask you a couple quick questions just on some of the things that you had mentioned there, and one is, I guess and it's so fascinating, to learn about, because when you learn about how batteries work and it's broken down for you, you're like, yeah, okay, it's actually more simple than I thought. It's these components put together and it creates this reaction, and that's how it gives a charge.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible stuff how simple it can be, and here you nearly, well, you're an inventor and an intellectual and a mad scientist. So I won't say you stumbled upon the hempcrete battery that you were walking around Calgary with that week, but it's pretty amazing stuff. I wanted to ask you, on when you discuss graphene, you discuss carbonized material. And I wanted to drill into that for a sec, Carl, because I am very much a proponent here in the United States and you have the same issue in Canada where you must dispose of / destroy crops that are not compliant. And in Canada, that's the same here in terms of anything that's above 0.3% delta 9 tetrahydrocannabinol. And I want pyrolysis to become, and at the U.S. Hemp Authority, the U.S. Hemp Roundtable this year, we have certainly added that to our legislative agenda for potential technical amendments to the Farm Bill. But to allow pyrolysis to be a compliant way to dispose of hot hemp, except that the materials produced therefrom may enter the stream of commerce. And when we talk about graphene and carbonized material, do you see hemp as being a source, to the extent, of course, we need to get the acres up, but hemp as being its own source of graphene and carbonized material because it is such a great resource for those things, or no?
Absolutely. I think it's actually the best way of actually disposing of it because, listen, I'm a big proponent of carbonized plant matter. I mean, I'll give you a couple of reasons why. I mean, we're talking right now, governments are talking right now right, of basically carbon sequestration. Well, guess what? I mean, carbon is when you carbonize plant matter, right? It's probably one of your greatest ways of solving this, carbon sequestration. Look, you take the plant off the field. If you Let's look at a couple examples. I put it into hempcrete. Hempcrete then builds your wall. That wall will last for decades, maybe a century. Okay. If you take it off the field and turn it into clothing, again, you're going to get maybe 5 to 10 years out of that fiber, and then it's going to break back down. The food, you take it off, you eat it. Well, it does its own thing. If you take this plant matter and you carbonize it, well, the really cool thing about this is we already have archaeological evidence to support this. I mean, they have earths that they've dug out of the ground out in the Amazon, same in Australia, and they're called terra preta or black earths, right?
Yes.
These black earths, right, are the carbons that were left after, they burned the material and they put it in the ground and helped to actually grow these early farms. Now, they dated these carbons, back 8,000 years. Well, that's serious carbon sequestration. We're not talking about, planting a tree, letting it grow 80 years, like some of them have actually talked about. We're talking about 8,000, not 80, 8,000 years. It's a great way of doing it. And the thing is, once you have this carbon, right, you can then create these panels. I was talking about bagasse earlier. One of the things that really got me going on this was because down in Australia, okay, they don't have a whole lot of hemp, but they have where I was, they have a whole lot of sugarcane. People are looking at building houses out of hemp. They're bringing the hemp in from who knows where. So I've heard some of them coming in from England and stuff like that. It's like, well, there goes the carbon credits right out the window to build a house. Okay, and I said, you guys, you could be using the sugarcane bagasse to build your houses. The same thing as a hempcrete. I was calling it canecrete. And I was trying to explain to people. I said, look, instead of taking your bagasse, and this is what they do actually down there to generate electricity, and all over the world, anywhere where you have sugarcane, they'll take the sugarcane and they burn it, and what they do is combust it, right? So they just take it, put a match to it, and poof, release all that energy from it. And
as opposed to
putting it into a controlled atmosphere where then you can actually create this essentially charcoal, right? But that charcoal, now I try to get people to think about this for a second. So I'm just going to use kind of a number, and I'm just going to say, okay, say you took 1 kilo of this material, okay, and you combust it, and you get 1,000 kilojoules of energy, right? So I'm just using a number just to keep things simple. So you get 1,000 kilojoules of energy. Now, if you take the same plant, that same kilo, but you carbonize it and you turn it into this panel, okay? Now, this panel is, is carbon. We know it can remain stable for thousands of years. And now I know that if I put it, an electrolyte and put another piece of carbon beside it, I can actually create a supercapacitor, or, I can create a kind of a battery. Now I'm saying, okay, say you have the solar panels. And the solar panels, they need to store that energy. Otherwise, you have to use it right away. All right, so we have these 2 carbon panels and we have solar. And now carbon we know lasts forever. Now we can, and I should mention that supercapacitors have a theoretical charge cycle of basically a million. Okay, I don't think anybody's hit that yet, but that's the theoretical. And to put that in perspective again, if you look at a car battery is something like 500 charge cycles. All right, so you got a car battery at 500, you got the supercapacitor at potentially a million, we got this carbon that can last a really long time. Now, going back to that point where I'm making combusting 1,000 kilojoules of energy. Now we have this carbon, create this battery. You have solar panels that charge, and then the battery discharge, charge, discharge, charge, discharge, and for a million times. How much more energy are you now getting out of that carbon versus just releasing it and combusting it and then releasing all that carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere? So you tell me. I mean, I have never been able to calculate the number. It's just this huge, funny number up in the space, that's going to be, but it's huge. I mean, it's going to be more than 1,000 kilojoules of energy. I mean, you're using the sun to charge up this carbon, and it releases that energy, and it comes back again, back and forth for the next 100 years. Well, it's no brainer to say, yeah, that's going to last a really long time. I'm going to get a lot more energy out of it.
We're
That's what.
talking about completely transforming
Yeah,
and eliminating our need as technology advances, obviously, to use these systems and forms of energy, our reliance on fossil fuels, period.
exactly. And one of the reasons why I made it as a brick, right? Because when I was first doing some of this experimenting, and when I was creating little things about the size of a stamp, and then going, wow, I could put like 250 milliamps onto this little thing, and then got me to thinking about surface area, because I talk about surface area inside the battery, and I said, what about outside the battery? And it comes back to the hempcrete and able to store it. And put it as a brick. And I said, well, okay, if this brick is 4.5 volts, and the one that you saw, Joy, was about 4.5 volts, because I designed it that way so it could actually charge a tablet or a phone, because it's the same as lithium, right? So 4.5
Right.
volts and about 4 or 5 amps. Now I said, start, if this is a wall of bricks on the outside of a building, start counting all those bricks. And okay, how many volts, how many amps could you store on the outside of that building? That's surface area. So you could have huge surface areas, right? That basically you just charge and it holds your energy, and we go. We're using surface area to our advantage now. It's not just a wall. It's a wall that stores energy. There's
It's a
another function
charging
to it.
wall, for
Yeah,
heaven's sake, a charging wall.
exactly.
Your
It's
tiny home,
using
tiny
exactly.
homes can be batteries and tiny homes at the same time.
Absolutely. It's just using our surface area with the materials that we have, right, to in a more efficient way, right? So I mean, we have solar panels and whatever, and that charges your house, during the day, and then you can use that energy during the night, right, and so on and so forth. So and you can design it in a way so that, look, the solar panels will basically charge that wall up, and then you have enough of those bricks that you can actually go 3, 4, 5, 7 days, okay, without having to recharge it again. So say it gets pretty cold and dark in the wintertime in Canada, but Denmark has been doing things like this for a while, where they have solar panels and everything else, and they're able to survive. Although I heard down in Texas that all their windmills froze, but
I'm going
that's
to
a
just,
different story.
and we'll just hold a pin in that just for one sec, as I
Sure.
insert the fact that tomorrow, because there's a new social media platform. I basically have zero time for social media, but there's a phenomena of this Clubhouse, which is a new platform where you get to actually speak with each other. So instead of having all the weirdness of I'm misinterpreting everything that person just posted or said, you get to actually hear each other and talk and dialogue. And some of the greatest minds in our industry have found this platform and are starting to use it. And tomorrow, because I have some wonderful friends in Texas, we're going to do a whole hour Clubhouse session on what would have happened in Texas had we had hempcrete. And
Right.
this conversation we're having right now is going to just so fantastically allow me to, bring it to the whole nother level. I was just going to talk about the retention of heat, but now you've reminded me, with using the surface area and other technology being developed, who would have needed the power grid at all?
Exactly. I mean, those windmills, okay, sure, they could have froze up and they could freeze up for a few days, but if you have, each and every house that was there to, store that energy when the thing did go down, it's okay. We have a house battery that can actually then keep filling that gap in regards to energy, right? That we're sorely lacking. So I mean, they could have charged up all those houses. Okay, the windmill goes off. Well, we got power for the next 4 days. We're okay. Guys, get to work, get the mills fixed, and back up and running. We wouldn't have this problem today if they would have had batteries, or they would have had the hempcrete battery, hempcrete houses that store the energy. Right? It's as simple as that.
And in fact, thermal energy, in terms of, and really that point of it alone, I thought was definitely worth the Clubhouse. And that is, as you well know, due to the thermal capacity and fantastic way that reconciles with the thermal conductivity. I mean, it is just the most awesome, construction infill or wall insulation material you'd ever want to have.
It is. It's an incredible building material.
You could basically light a couple of candles, depending on how small the room is,
Yeah.
or use whatever power they had. Let's get the hemp battery out of it, and just the 1 hour on, 1 hour off. I actually work for a company that their headquarters is in Texas. It's an international company, and so all of my coworkers, I'm sitting here in heaven in Seattle this week, and they're like, "I'm sorry if our Zoom goes off. It means I'm out of power. I'm on, an hour off." So in any event, to be able to use that hour of on power to warm up the house, and then and don't get it too hot, by the way, because it's going to retain that thermal energy so
That's right.
well that you're going to get too hot very quickly, and it will stay hot.
Well,
So
yeah,
as we know,
it's already been shown that the hempcrete houses will actually save 90% of your energy costs by building with that material. So it's like it's almost a no-brainer.
it is a no-brainer. I mean, so much
Hempcrete's
so.
great.
That 12 to 18-inch thick wall, depending
Hmm.
on how close you are to a pole or an equator, right, with good windows, is going to give you, speaking on average, an interior ambient temperature of about 60 degrees Fahrenheit year round without a heating or a cooling system.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, you look at the Museum of London, where they actually did some of those calculations where they needed 800 cubic meters or square meters of space for their new museum, and instead of going with a traditional mortar and brick, where they calculated they would need 20 kilowatts of energy to basically heat and humidify and cool or whatever. This building, they calculated with hempcrete panels that they were going to be something like 5 kilowatts of energy. And I think since it's been running, it's only averaging about 2 kilowatts of energy. So just think that's a huge savings, and in regards to energy. Why aren't all Canadian homes being built this way? It makes you kind of wonder.
It makes you wonder, and I love it. Now we're telling you, for everyone, for the first time, though, despite the fact that we keep talking about Calgary, Carl lives in Canada, so he's wondering about the Canadian homes, and
Whereas
we're gonna
mine is
get.
20.
Yes, and the other thing that I just want to mention, I basically want to piggyback off everything you say, and I just cannot wait to see you again so we can spend 4 or 5 hours together, and I can get it all out and just listen to you and have a session. Um, but the other thing about the Museum of London, brother, why on top of the energy, it was about humidity regulation,
That's right.
hygroscopicity, and
That's
the
right.
fact that they have, and they're even, as you well know, creating mini hempcrete storage facilities within the
In the
museum
That's right.
because they are the ideal environment for incredibly valuable documents and artifacts because of hempcrete's unique ability to regulate humidity and vapor.
Exactly. Well, look at the Adens Brewery. From the last time I read anything about that, Adens was basically, they've been able to maintain 13 degrees Celsius at 50% humidity all year round with no energy. So, I mean, that's incredible.
It is incredible, and oh my God! See, yeah, now I have to say it again because you had to mention Adams, and one of the many, and we've only scratched the surface, right, with the
Yeah.
incredible things that they've discovered. But one that is particularly interesting, that they did not even expect. It was just an unexpected, unanticipated benefit. Is a quantifiable reduction in employee sick leave. So
Uh-huh.
whatever their building was prior to that, I mean, and it's possible it had sick building syndrome and there was something wrong with the building. But one thing they noticed for sure, once they were finished with this just tremendous undertaking and transformation, this shining example of a brewery.
Your
Uh,
walls essentially turn into the lungs of the building, because
yes,
it's a breathable wall. Any kind of mold or bacteria that gets trapped in that wall, because of there's a lime surface, an alkaline surface, so that it basically nullifies and kills these things off. So you get this beautiful clean air. Basically, it's been filtered through that. It's not like your walls are literally wind passing through them or anything else. It's just that they're breathable, right?
it's a living, breathing wall
Exactly.
system. It's a living, breathing wall system, and of course, on top of that, mold, rot, fire, and pest resistance
Yeah.
that hempcrete offers. Of course, as we just discussing here, it also is offering you optimal indoor air quality, particularly if you would do a lime rendering. And the other piece to that, and it just dovetails with our earlier conversation here on carbon sink. I mean, between the hemp and the fact that the lime is wanting to become calcium
Calcium
carbonate
carbonate
again.
again. That's right. Starts as calcium carbonate and goes back to calcium carbonate. I love that chemistry. I mean, it's incredible. You know, you got CaCO3, add a little bit of heat to it. Okay, you drive off the CO2, but then, you know, and so now you're left with CaO, calcium oxide. And then over time, it takes back that carbon dioxide, you know, and it goes back to being rock again. So it's like, that's really cool.
That lime, and it fossilizes. So,
Yeah,
so your hemp home is only going to get stronger. I mean, yes,
exactly.
it requires timber or steel framing, although we're seeing some other cool types of framing. But yes, it is non-structural, except that it basically becomes monolithic eventually.
Eventually, that's right. Absolutely. So it's a really cool material. Like it's just gonna, yeah, it just gets stronger over time.
So much so. And two other quick things before we move on in our remaining time to talk a little bit more about you. You're so wonderful. You would talk about batteries for this whole thing, but your
Oh yeah.
Carl Martel is so, it is an explosion beyond batteries. I wanted to also, you had mentioned, of course, sugar cane, and certainly having to deal with a carbon footprint of moving materials across the great oceans here. And you may have met Stephen Clark. Have you ever met Stephen Clark of Mexico, of Having
Yeah,
Grown?
of course I have. Yeah, I've met him a couple times. So yeah, he's great.
Cocoa Creek. He's wonderful. And just as you know, he's going to use what's local and available where he's
Yep.
at. And so he loves cocoa crete. And you
I'll
said cane
always
crete.
yeah, I'll always promote local. You know, it's like, you know, we get this agricultural waste that we have at our disposal. It's like it's going to be cheap, easy use, and you know, hey, if it's available, use it. You know, it's
If
a
it's
great way of
available,
using
use
it.
it.
Yeah, you know,
Yep, Greg Flaval and Andrea Herman of Hemp Technologies. You know, you often hear him say when he was in New Zealand. Thank goodness we've got him in the United States now, but he was in New Zealand for all those years, and there's a way more sheep than humans there. So no, guys, we'll be using wool to insulate. You know, the ceiling. I hate to disappoint
yeah.
you, recent graduate from insert green school here, who you know wants all hemp, everything, and geothermal, even when there's no geothermal source. No, we're going to use what's local. So
Yeah.
interesting stuff. Now, you, of course, sit on multiple advisory boards and are just serve as a consultant and advisor to so many companies between American Harvest and Blue Sky Ventures and many others. And you're also involved in a really fascinating to me company, Ivona, in Paraguay. Tell us, and I want you to be able to choose whatever it is that you're most excited about. Tell us about it, brother.
Well, okay. Yeah, Ivona and Healthy Grains. This group of guys, you know, I was speaking in Uruguay back in, I can't remember when it was, you know, 2019, maybe it was before the whole Corona thing. Great group of guys. They're actually, so Healthy Grains is actually one of the largest producers of chia, you know, in the world. And chia, of course, is one of those great superfoods, right, that
Yes.
everybody hears about. So they, you know, and they're doing all that and they want to get into this. They heard about hemp and get into the other thing, into this other superfood. And Paraguay had just basically the guys, and the president came out and said with a national decree saying, you know, we're going to make industrial cannabis a national priority and everything else that way. So a lot of really great government support here in regards to this plant and everything else. And I just love that. You know, when a government can, you know, step forward and say, yeah, we're going to give you everything you need. And, you know, we're taking the red tape off, helping you guys out as best we can, you know, so you can get this stuff and going. They want to grow 50,000 hectares in this country. And I'm like, that's the way to go. And you know, it's all starting out with basically really, you know, food and fiber, and then you have, you know, your medicine along with it. You know, look at some of these other countries. I feel for them. Uruguay, for example, kind of stuck in growing just cannabis, you know, recreational cannabis or medicinal cannabis. There's 70% of everything that they do there. Now they're saying, well, we want to get into the industrial side of things, but it's like you started off on the wrong foot. You know, it's like should be really focusing on getting your industrial cannabis sector going because that's a very stable. It may not be as glamorous as you know the CBD thing and everything else, but it is. It's the foundation necessary, right, for this
It
growth.
is the foundation that it provides the economic stability for the
Exactly.
farmer and environmental stability. But
Exactly.
continue, brother.
It's the same thing in Canada. I
Mm.
mean, Canada, they did some things right. I mean, they started off. They said, okay, you can have grain and fiber. You can use that. You can't touch the flour right now. 18 years later, they said, okay, now you can touch the flour. But it gave that foundation necessary to get this industry kind of off the ground. Right. Colombia is another one. I think they're still trying to struggling, but they're still kind of more focused on that drug side of things. And it's like, no, guys, look, food and fiber, right? Let's get going on it. Food, easy, get that going. Fiber, a little bit more capital investment, everything else, and there are some struggles there, but some struggling to get that infrastructure up and running. But it's underway. I mean, and these guys here, already growing basically 1,000 hectares of industrial cannabis. They're also doing the medicinal side of things. They have a grow here. They're permitted 0.5% level of THC in their
Oh,
crop.
Paraguay has a 0.5. And everybody, Carl, while he lives in Canada, he's visiting us today from Paraguay. So they can go up to 0.5 delta 9 there.
And I think eventually they're going to go to that 1%, like a lot of other countries, like Switzerland, Colombia, Australia, South Africa, I think, a few others that have actually going that direction. It only makes sense. I mean, 0.3 for a long time has always been an arbitrary number. And I think governments and scientists are recognizing that 0.3 is a bit ludicrous. We can be responsible with 1%. I think the Europeans might take a little bit longer to recognize that, but they're gonna get there eventually too. They've gone from 0.2 to 0.3, so moving in the right direction. I think the United States too. They're going to go up to 0.5 very quickly.
And as you may know, and really, I think ideally, it's international leaders were wanting to sort of get together and do it as a real coalition effort, as opposed to the one-offs, because international trade obviously is so important here as well. And so we get into those issues of, well, Europe, if we went to 1% right now, Europe would consider our plant material to be derived from other forms of cannabis, to be derived essentially from marijuana, just to make it easy for our listeners, as opposed to hemp. So, we'll be so excited. But you may know that the French Parliament, in a just outrageously counterintuitive move just last week, said, "Oh, by the way, we think maybe 1% in the field." Like, you guys have been the holdouts on point two for all of these years, and now all of a sudden you're like, 1% in the field. Now, I think they did it to be provocative, but in any event, if we can get all of the international sort of federation going, and as you may know, the idea of an international hemp federation was really born in your home country of Canada, the European Industrial Hemp Association, IA, and the Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance with Ted Haney. And we had, in fact, the founding meeting of the International Hemp Federation at that 2019 meeting in Calgary. China, Holland, Belgium, Australia was there. Two of us from the United States, and some other countries as well. And so for us to be able to get together as a concerted effort and be like, okay, because to be able to say we're all making this push together and having it done at the same time, it certainly helps as these other countries do their one-off, but it really needs to be a wonderfully sort of timed and concerted effort here, I think, to get it done right. And we're well on our way to that. We are well on our way to that.
Absolutely. And the South Americans as well they're right on board with all this as well. They're coming together, creating these associations, wanting to come on board. They're coming on board internationally as well, with these things. I mean, one of the greatest things I love about this government here, what they said was, okay, we want to grow to 50,000 hectares. But we want this to help our small farmers. Our small farmers are all redistributed plots. They're all basically 2-hectare plots. We want them growing, okay, on 2-hectare plots to basically crop rotation with their sesame and other things that way that they're generating some income, but the hemp will provide even more income, right, for these small farmers, right? So that's the idea of these 25,000 small farms all having this hemp to be able to grow in rotation with their crops to increase the money for the small farmer, right? And the poor farmer, right, is trying to raise the level of their living wage and their living styles, everything else, right? So that they're able to then
their quality of life.
Their quality of life. I mean, this country, you think people don't hear about Paraguay. They go, Paraguay, where the heck is that? It's like, sometimes I have to show them. I pull the map and say, see South America here? Look right in the middle. You see that country right there? That's Paraguay. People don't think of it as a whole lot, but it's like, it's a really good country. It's moving up there. I wouldn't consider them a third world country. Actually, I've been living here. I'm going to the malls and everything else. And I'm seeing this country growing like crazy, and they're very progressive in their thinking. It's a very young population here as well, very open. A lot of these things, like I say, makes a whole lot of sense. And that's one of the main reasons why I'm down here, is this, this welcoming of the government, the welcoming of these people, and the companies that I'm working with. They're very accepting of these new ideas, very progressive in the way that they're thinking and everything else. And I think that's great. And I mean, that's going to really help the industry, I think, without having, government hindrances being put in and their government meddling. Really, that's the red tape, bureaucratic tape to see about all this. It's like, come on, guys, just get out of the way so I can get things done.
You are a kid in a candy store there. I mean, you are a kid in a candy store there. And I'm so jealous between, the pictures that you shared with me and the fact that you're like being welcomed with open arms by the people, by the government, by the folks with infrastructure. It is a dream for a hemp revolutionary Renaissance man like yourself. Absolutely. Carl. They're so lucky to have you. I can't wait to get down there myself at some point. And
come on down anytime.
Oh gosh. And I just cannot wait to be able to commune with everyone, but especially incredible souls like you. You just shine so bright. Cannot wait to see all that you're doing and to see it all come true in the world. And so much of it already has. We've really only scratched the surface of Carl Martel, which means that I'm going to have you back, brother.
Anytime, Joy. I'd love to.
Yay. I can't wait to do it. I am wishing you good health, good fun, so much prosperity, and just continue to walk in your purpose. And may it be just rewarding and filled with joy while you're down there and afterwards, Carl. We'll have you back on again soon, brother.
Well, thank you very much.